It's a new era for the Tulsa Golden Hurricane, and unfortunately, it feels like we've been saying that quite a bit. But we'll see how this goes. Trey Lamb takes over a program that is desperate for some success, especially after the last regime and their struggles. But Trey Lamb comes in from East Tennessee State, and it feels like this has a different feeling. Now, will that mean success? I don't know. We'll take a look at the top 10 players returning or coming into the program for this year. We'll take a look at the schedule, and we're really just talking about what does a rebuild look like long term. It may not be a bowl season this year, but what needs to happen for them to get to that point in years to come. Now, when I talk about the program as a whole, it's not that there's a lack of talent. That's kind of the overarching problem with Tulsa, and the transfer portal just wiped out this pretty much the entire roster. So that's a whole different story that we'll talk about. But there are some talented players returning. Chris Thompson Jr. had a solid year for Tulsa, 49 tackles, 5 tackles for loss. And I say that as it's a defense that was absolutely horrendous last year. You know, they were decent at getting to the quarterback. They finished 68th in sacks last year, but this is a defense that overall struggled with pretty much everyone. They gave up 42.5 points per game. They gave up nearly 500 yards per game. The nice thing about that for Trey Lamb and this staff and Josh Reardon, the defensive coordinator, is you don't have to take drastic steps to see major improvements. Taking some of these numbers, reducing your points against by 10 points, which is not difficult to do if you have the right pieces in place, that puts you in a much better position to win football games. Now, you have to get to that point, but there are things that this group can do to make things better. And I think that they will improve on those numbers, but it won't be easy. Chris Thompson Jr. is a nice piece to have, a nice leader to have returning. Again, with the amount of players that went to the transfer portal that left this program, having a couple of names come back that are familiar with the program, that are familiar with the area, that's a really nice thing to have if you're Trey Lamb. Another guy that they're happy to have back is Ty Newhouse. 32 tackles, 4 tackles for loss at the nose tackle position. And again, another guy that will help this defense, that helps some of these new faces get acquainted with Tulsa, Oklahoma. And what Trey Lamb is hoping for is this is a group that steps up in a big way. It's a group that finished 104th against the run. Ty Newhouse is going to play a big role in stopping the run this year. 6'2", 320 pounds, so he has good size to eat up blocks and be disruptive. And it's just a matter of who we're going to be the guys around him. There's a lot of questions about who will be his line mates, if you will. You know, a guy like Byron Turner coming in from Fresno State, or I assume Florida State, should be an option, but you need more than that. It's not just about the starters, it's about depth. But you have Ty Newhouse coming back, and you feel like that's a good enough position to start with. Before we continue with the video, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and take a look. It takes a couple of seconds. It helps the channel grow. We've seen tremendous growth in the last couple of years, and we'd like to keep that going. Doing a giveaway at 10,000 subscribers, so we're hoping to hit that goal this year, and you make that happen. But let's get back to the video. Even during these struggles, Tulsa's had some really good secondary players. You've had some really good corners, some really good safeties, and a lot of them have kind of a bigger frame. That was kind of their MO, was getting these big corners, the big safeties, and having a lineup at one point that everybody was 6'2" or taller was just crazy. And that's kind of going to happen this year. Elijah Green comes in at 6'2", 195 pounds, and he was one of the few bright spots before he was out for the rest of the year. He only played 6 games last year, but made an impact. 18 tackles, 2 interceptions. If you put that in and basically double his production, we'd be talking about an all-conference type player. And if he can stay healthy for the entire year, if he can play an entire season, you feel like this group will improve. They finished 134th against the pass, and you feel like if Elijah Green plays the entire year, that number will improve drastically. One of the more interesting signees for Tulsa was getting Dominic Richardson out of the transfer portal. The former Oklahoma State and Baylor transfer comes to Tulsa looking for a fresh start, and with this roster being depleted, there's a wide open spot at running back, and the depth at this position will be really interesting to watch. But Dominic Richardson only played in 4 games last year, 109 yards. It was not his best year. But when you look at his production in the past, this is someone who could play at a high level in the Big 12. Now you put him in the AAC. Part of it's going to have to do with who the offensive line is going to be, how they're going to block, but he is someone that can definitely make a major impact right off the bat, and that's going to help this team turn things around. The quarterback position was a mess, plain and simple, last year, and you don't have two of the options coming back. Kirk Francis is the sole option returning to this team, and he wasn't exactly the most inspiring option. Over 1,500 yards passing, 9 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Plain and simple, the quarterback position was not good last year, and it's definitely going to be a competition. So maybe this is too high to have him on this list, but he is someone that if he can take a step, if he can win the starting spot and prove that he's better, he is going to be a big reason why Tulsa wins more football games this year. Now, while he does not fit the same mold as that previous cornerbacks that we talked about, Keon Parker is going to be a really interesting player to watch. When you look at what he did last year, another guy that didn't play the full year, 8 games, 20 tackles, 4 passes defended, 1 interception. At 5'9", 180 pounds, not exactly the biggest corner, but gives you a different type of player, a guy with a chip on his shoulder. People probably overlooked him in recruiting, and he is looking to make a name for himself. This could be a really interesting duo with Elijah Green and Keon Parker. You feel like they have players that are playing with the right type of attitude, and it'll be really fun to see how they actually perform. Trey Lamb did bring some talent with him from East Tennessee. Ray Coney is one of those guys, a very productive player for Trey Lamb when he was there. 97 tackles last year, 12 tackles for loss, 5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles. This is a natural playmaker. And in the past, Tulsa's had some really good linebackers as well. Is Ray Coney going to be that next guy? He has the production. He's familiar with the system, familiar with his coach, and that could be a really good formula. Now, we talked about the offensive line and their need to be improved. Bringing in Simon Wilson was honestly a little bit surprising. Comes in from Middle Tennessee, started 11 games for the Blue Raiders last year. And I think that it'd be really interesting to see how he gels with these new teammates. He has 24 games of experience, so he's a veteran who comes in and can help change the culture, change the attitude of the offensive line, and that's going to help the rushing attack. It's going to help the quarterbacks and just everybody as a whole. Tulsa did lose quite a bit to the transfer portal, but they also brought in some talent as well. Tim Hardiman was a really interesting get for this program. The Arkansas State transfer comes in, 31 tackles, 2 tackles for loss. You feel like he's just scratching the surface of what he's capable of doing. And when you look at, we talked about the defensive line and its need to improve, Tim Hardiman is a good addition because he gives you a guy that can elevate the talent level. He can elevate expectations. And again, Josh Reardon is looking for guys that are going to fit his system well and he can trust. Tim Hardiman could be one of those guys that steps up. And then the last player, Jalen Kennedy, another safety, another defensive back that did not play the full year, 9 games last year, 15 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 2 interceptions. So again, you're kind of seeing the theme of this is a group that played a lot of different players in the secondary, and that was kind of the theme really at every position. But the secondary was a group that got hit with injuries that needs to stay healthy this year. If they do that, you feel like they take a step forward. And again, we talked about this before. You don't need to take these drastic steps. Baby steps will result in really exciting things for this team. And maybe a bowl game would be in the conversation, but just showing signs of improvement would build hope for the future. Now, there's no over-under for Tulsa set quite yet. I would probably put it at 3, honestly, because when you look at this schedule, 5-7 is the ceiling, and 2-10 is the floor. I think that right now you really have to temper expectations. Just because you have a new coaching staff does not guarantee that you're going to turn things around in a heartbeat. You also bring in a ton of talent. Not every program is going to go from a 3-9 season to 7-6 or 7-5 or whatever. You're not going to win 7, 8, 9 games after just making a coaching change. And Tulsa's fans probably know that more than anybody. The schedule isn't terrible. And when you start off Abilene Christian at New Mexico State, those are 2 winnable games. But as we've seen in the past, that doesn't guarantee anything, unfortunately. Navy and Oklahoma State, those are rough. Actually, Navy, Oklahoma State, Tulane, and Memphis, that's a rough stretch. So you're probably sitting at 2-4 at best. Then you get a bye week before going ECU Temple. That's an interesting stretch that could provide some challenges, but also some opportunities. Another bye week before you end the year at FAU, Oregon State, at Army and UAB. So again, not the easiest schedule, definitely not a schedule that you can guarantee 6 wins, but it's all about the long game. It's all about long term. Can this coaching staff turn this program around? Can they get them to where they need to be long term? Even if that means winning 4 games this year or winning 3, but you look better doing it. Those are the things they're going to focus on, and they're focusing on how do we build this program long term so that we look better in the long run.